You thought he was done? You thought the takes were too hot to handle? You better think again. He's back with even more scorching opinions, more controversial predictions, and the kind of truth bombs that only Zain Bando can deliver. If you missed the first round, prepare yourself. This is the follow-up you've been waiting for. It's time for Zain Zinger Part 2, another certified hit from the Empty the Bench Network. Here's your host, Zain Bando.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Zain Zinger Part 2. Hope you are doing well on this Sunday, May 3rd, 2025. Hope you are doing well. And again, it is the beginning of May. That means we are in the transitional period. We are getting closer and closer to the summer months. Before we get into this brief edition of the stream today, please be sure to listen to Bando's Breakdown to wherever you get your podcast. We just had episode 88 drop the other day. It was on Thursday this week due to some scheduling conflicts with a very special guest that we had on Wednesday. That was Ben Stevens. Shout out to him from Beeson for coming on to chat with me about all things college basketball, college football, and the NFL draft. It was a great conversation, so you can check that out as well over on the YouTube side, which, speaking of YouTube, you could listen to any of our shows or watch any of our shows on youtube.com/EDB Network. And of course, for those of you watching after the fact and watching this on social media, please be sure, if you haven't already done so, to throw me a follow at Bando's Breakdown. That tells me that you like all the different kinds of content that's coming out, and that way you're also engaging with the reels from every single show that I produce every single week. There's more reels coming out for the remainder of the weekend, so stay tuned for those as those continue to drop on Monday, and of course today, as well as all the other reels that have occurred over the course of the past few days since the premiere of the newest edition of the show. And speaking of the show will return next week. That's a program alert, episode 89 with myself next Friday, May 8th, 3 Eastern, noon Pacific. You won't want to miss it. A full-on preview of UFC 328, what happened at the Kentucky Derby, as well as some other stuff in the works as well. We may even get some fight announcements next week. Hopefully we do, for some of the major cards that are coming up this summer. So if you want to check those out, you certainly can. And again, episode 89 next Friday, wherever you get your podcast. Be sure to subscribe to your RSS feed. That way you don't miss it in your feed come Friday as well. So stay tuned for that and much more to come. Let's get into Zain Zinger Part 2. And for those of you who are just tuning in right now, thank you so much for doing so. And speaking of Zain Zinger Part 2 as well, without further ado, you can catch today's replay again on YouTube, X, and or Instagram, as I just alluded to, Instagram and Twitter as well, as it says there. But let's get into it, though, and let's not waste any more time. UFC Perth took place yesterday morning in the United States, and it was over in Perth, Western Australia. The hometown guy, Jack Della Maddalena, did not take care of business literally in his hometown, in his home country, getting knocked out by Carlos Prates. A brutal knockout in the third round for the Nightmare. Dominant win for the Brazilian. That's now 3 wins over 3 different former champions now. Very impressive stuff. He's obviously knocked out Leon Edwards and JDM as well over the course of his last 2 fights now, and he continues to get more and more impressive every single time you see him in the octagon. That now puts him in a great position to contend for the UFC welterweight title. He called out the winner of the Islam Makhachev-Ian Gary fight. Ian Gary already had some choice words on social media for Carlos Prates that once he wins the title, he would gladly grant him his first title shot opportunity in Brazil should Gary become the champion. So it's all very interesting stuff. Again, Prates just used his effortless striking really well. His clinch work was unbelievable. His boxing was crisp. And yeah, JDM did try to get him to the ground a couple of times to try to force a submission, change the complexion of the fight, was unable to do so. He gets the job done in round 3. And again, another impressive knockout for Carlos Prates. JDM had never been knocked out going into this fight. And again, just before losing to Islam Makhachev last November, JDM had won 18 fights in a row, dating all the way back to 2016. So he's going to have to go back to the drawing board once again as the former UFC welterweight champion, now having lost 2 fights in a row. Carlos Prates is right there in the thick of things, wants to stay active, is very intrigued by what is ahead of the future in the welterweight division. So we shall see where he fits into that puzzle. It looked like he and Hunter Campbell had a very good cage side conversation. So hopefully those backroom meetings went really well, and hopefully we'll get some more news on Carlos Prates very, very soon. The Brazilian, if you will. There's never been a Brazilian UFC welterweight champion. He promised reporters on Saturday morning that he would be the first to do so should he get the opportunity to win a UFC championship. So all very good stuff there. Overall, the card was kind of lackluster. We didn't do very well on the card. We went 7-6 on this card. Did miss out on the main event once again, so that decreases my main event record even further for the year. We are now 6-8 through 14 UFC main events. There were some other standout performances, including in the co-main event, Quinlan Salkeld knocking out Beneil Dariush, making it look really easy. I thought Beneil Dariush was going to go into enemy territory and win that fight. I was wrong there. Tai Tuivasa has now increased his losing streak to 7 in a row. He did say on Instagram that he does not plan to retire. It's all very interesting stuff from Tuivasa's standpoint, as Tuivasa has been in the UFC for a very long time, most famously known for his Shubi celebration, has not been able to do so in several years. One of the most iconic knockouts in recent heavyweight history was him knocking out Greg Hardy at UFC 264. I was there for that one. And yeah, he just hasn't been the same fighter in a long time. I think his chin is not holding up that well. And I think it might be time for him to go into bare knuckle or do something else, because clearly he's not able to compete with the best at heavyweight anymore. And this loss at UFC Perth this weekend clearly did show that and then some. So not a good showing for Tai Tuivasa, but overall, though, a decent show, a sold-out show for the Perth audience. It should have been a little bit of a better card, but it is what it is. We move on. It'll be now going back to the United States next week for UFC 328, which, of course, is headlined by Hamza Chimaev, the newly minted UFC middleweight champion, taking on the former champion and always charismatic Sean Strickland in the main event for UFC 328 from the Prudential Center in Newark. So don't miss that one. We will preview that and so much more on next week's edition of Bando's Breakdowns. And then finally, to round it out, the NBA and NHL playoffs thus far have been very, very good. There's been a couple of series, though, that have ended. There's also been a couple of series that have been going to the brink of elimination, if you will. So let's go through some of those series that have already moved forward and are looking ahead towards the second round of the playoffs. The LA Lakers took care of business against the Houston Rockets on Friday to win the series 4-2, doing so in Houston 98-76. Obviously, going into Sunday, the Cavaliers and the Raptors are tied at 3 games apiece. The Timberwolves will move on and take on the San Antonio Spurs. And of course, looking ahead, the Knicks dominated the Atlanta Hawks 140-89 to win that series in 6 games as well. Been a lot of exciting stuff in the NBA, a lot of surprises, if you will, moving forward. And then, of course, looking ahead to today's slate as well, we also have a crazy Game 7 in Detroit. Detroit rallied in Game 6 from down 24 to win that one against Orlando. So they have now forced a Game 7 in Detroit. That'll be very interesting. So you will get 2 Game 7s today as well in the NBA, which is extremely, extremely exciting. And then looking over at the NHL side of things, we had the Philadelphia Flyers finally advance to the second round, and they will play the Carolina Hurricanes coming up. That'll be a very exciting series to see if the Hurricanes could potentially get knocked off as well. We will have some pretty good game ones kind of moving forward. So far, the other confirmed series is the Minnesota Wild against the Colorado Avalanche. The Avalanche, a potential favorite to win the Stanley Cup. Minnesota beating Dallas in 6 games to move on to the second round. So that's very interesting as well. And then, of course, the Sabres eliminated the Boston Bruins. So they will await their fate as to who they will play in the second round as well. It's all good stuff moving forward in the NHL as we move closer and closer into the second round. I do think, though, it's weird that a bunch of the second round series have already begun, like Philadelphia versus Carolina and like tonight's game 1 between Minnesota and Colorado, given that round 1 still has not fully concluded. I don't fully understand that. You will have to ask the NHL that question. At the very least, they are being transparent as to who is going to be playing who in the second round based on other outcomes and all that. They've been doing a good job of that. But nonetheless, though, that's going to do it. This was another edition of Zain Zinger Part 2. Thank you so much for tuning in to the shorthand edition. I really appreciate it. Hope you have a good rest of your Sunday. Hope you enjoy the madness that is the NBA and NHL playoffs for those that is left in the first round, at least for those games that are left in the first round, rather. But until next time, I'm Zain Bando. Thank you so much once again for tuning in to yet another edition of Zain Zinger Part 2. I will see you guys for episode 89 premiering this Friday. And until then, talk to you guys soon. Have a good one. And cheers, everyone. Thanks.